On February 17, 2022, Brittany Griner arrived at an airport near Moscow, Russia. She was a star player on the Phoenix Mercury, a WNBA basketball team, and for the last 7 off seasons also played on a Russian team. But as she approached security, agents stopped her. In her bags, they found cannabis oil. Then agents arrested her, and a court sentenced her to 9 years in prison for drug possession. But Russia didn't really imprison Griner because she broke the law. It imprisoned her because 7,000 miles away, a notorious Russian arms dealer sat in a US prison. And Vladimir Putin wanted to make a trade. Over the last decade, the number of Americans detained abroad has skyrocketed, and many were detained by Russia. They're journalists, dissidents, and normal travelers. But to Putin, they're pawns. Pawns he can seize, trade, and use to extort the US. And so far, it's working.
This is a problem that's here to stay because it's a tactic that works.
So how'd we end up in a new era of hostage-taking? Why is Putin, in particular, kidnapping so many Americans? And how far is the US willing to go to free them?
Yeah.
For decades, the US followed a simple rule in hostage situations. It's called no concessions.
Wait, I'm not fine.
The rule was established in 1973 when the Palestinian terrorist group Black September kidnapped 2 US diplomats and demanded that the US free several hundred prisoners. President Richard Nixon felt that giving in would incentivize other terrorist groups to kidnap Americans.
True.
So he refused. Black September executed the Americans, but no concessions remained official US policy, for the most part.
So the US tried to uphold this policy, but in reality, we did sometimes make concessions.
Wall Street Journal reporters Drew Hinshaw and Joe Parkinson have been investigating hostage diplomacy for years, and they detail it all in a new book, Swap, A Secret History of the New Cold War.
And it depended on who was president, the way the president looked at this problem, and sometimes who the kidnapper was.
If the hostage was an American spy, the US would tray a spy for him.
That makes sense.
Like in 1962, when the US sent captured Soviet spy Rudolf Abel across this German bridge at the same time the Soviets sent across Gary Powers, a CIA pilot. The US also sometimes made concessions if the kidnapper was a foreign government. Jimmy Carter lifted some sanctions on Iran to free hostages, and Ronald Reagan traded a Soviet spy for a detained American journalist.
That's awful.
Because both of these governments were autocratic, they had an advantage over the US.
If you arrest an American citizen, there's public pressure on the White House to free that person at whatever price.
But because autocracies don't face public pressure, they can wait until the US caves. Despite these exceptions, the US mostly stuck to no concessions until the mid-2010s, when the terrorist group ISIS kidnapped several Americans. Barack Obama refused to negotiate, but after ISIS executed several of them, their families started speaking out.
Really hope that in some way Jim's death pushes us to take another look at our policy to terrorist and hostage negotiations and rethink that.
Obama named a special envoy to meet with hostages' families. Then he announced a subtle change.
I mean, it's awful.
The United States government will not make concessions, such as paying ransom, to terrorist groups holding American hostages. At the same time, our policy does not prevent communication with hostages.
I mean, if you think about it, it incentivizes people that are American to create an elaborate operation if they're already prone to be part of these groups to organize their own detention and their own prisonership to change the world. I mean, that's fucking goddamn awful. What?
Hostage takers by our government, the families of hostages, or third parties who help.
Basically, Obama softened the rule to make deal-making less of an exception and more of a policy.
I forgot the phone. I mean, I got
hostages
answers.
held by Cuba, Iran, and the Taliban. Donald Trump did too. These negotiations often involved the hostages' families.
Families start feeding the special envoy ideas for how we could bring these Americans who are trapped overseas home. And those ideas filter all the way up to the White House and concessions start happening.
To many, this was the US finally doing the right thing. But at the same time, it was incentivizing more hostage-taking. The Foley Foundation reports that American detentions abroad began rising around 2011, driven not by terrorists, but mostly by foreign governments. Leading the way
Yeah, that's
was
dog
Putin's
shit.
Russia. In 2018, he had police detain an American tourist. Paul Whelan was in Russia for a wedding when Russian agents arrested and accused him of spying. Then a court sentenced him to 16 years in prison for espionage. There was barely any evidence, but for Putin, it was worth any potential blowback.
Russia already knows it's in a position where it's hardly
Barely any evidence? What does that mean? Like, so there was evidence or not?
being covered positively after the illegal invasion of Ukraine. And so it's just looking for what levers it can pull, for what capital it can extract.
But Putin wouldn't offer to trade Whelan for money or sanctions relief. He wanted his spies back.
Now, even though following the news is my job, I'm finding it harder than ever to keep track of the story.
Putin got his start as a Russian spy. And as president, he feels it's his duty to free Russian spies captured abroad.
I was actually surprised the degree to which Vladimir Putin could even be seen as somewhat sentimental. But for him, there's something deep inside, a loyalty, a sense of allegiance to what he sees as a kind of Praetorian Guard.
Officially, Viktor Bout was an arms dealer, but it's been suspected he worked closely with Russian intelligence. Through the 1990s, he sold weapons to governments and rebels from Africa to Asia. He earned a fortune and a nickname.
Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout, also known as the Merchant of Death.
The Merchant of Death.
The famed Merchant of Death.
The U.S. hunted Bout for years until catching him in a sting operation in Thailand in 2008. Bout was a few years into a 25-year sentence when Putin detained Paul Whelan and proposed a trade for him. But
well, that's an awful
Trump
trade.
said no.
I mean, yeah, fuck that.
Then Putin detained another American and offered him two, but Trump again said no. Putin's mistake was that he wanted a convicted arms dealer for two normal guys. Whelan and Reed's families held protests and went on the news.
I have found it necessary to sort of run around D.C., visiting all of these people and trying to keep the pressure on.
But they couldn't attract enough attention to force Trump to make a deal to free them. So Putin waited until Joe Biden took office to kidnap someone who would get that kind of attention. Images of Griner stuck in a Russian prison immediately went viral, and her relatives and celebrities pushed Biden to make a deal to free her.
There should be no swap.
I mean, these types of protesters are the same people who protest that somebody like him was freed or was released. But, I mean, I think that's fucking goddamn awful. Sorry, I hate to say it. It is the exact same people that would say, oh my god, you freed this, you did that, whatever. I mean, it's a tough situation.
Deal. That does not include Brittany Griner.
We're never going to shut up about this until she's back. We're never going to allow them to take their precious time.
The more public attention there was on Griner's case.
When he does that, are you awkward? I mean, when somebody gets freed in recent times, at least in recent times, people always get mad. I mean, that is somebody bad being freed on paper. This arms dealer is bad. Be freed. I mean, people do get mad about that all the time. When somebody bad gets freed.
The more that tied the government's hands, so they had to respond to that pressure.
Joe Biden called in his national security team and he said, we're going to have to cave sooner or later. Might as well cave now.
Just 10 months after her arrest, the U.S. swapped Bout for Griner. Both sides got what they wanted, but Putin got something more.
Nope. Nobody got what they wanted. That's crazy. I mean, they did, but what does the public get? I mean, this guy sold death to the whole world, and we got a basketball player of the WNBA. I mean, are we dead ass? So the world gets death, and America gets WNBA player. Okay. Interesting.
A playbook. By kidnapping a notable American, Putin proved he could free any Russian spy he wanted.
Man, what's next? We sell a nuke for a pack of gum? What? Can we get some mouthwash maybe? Well, give 3 nukes. What we want is a cigarette, just a cigarette.
The next on his list was
that is about the trade. That is,
and so in early 2023, Putin detained another American.
Depiction of the trade.
This time a journalist at a major paper, the Wall Street Journal.
Evan Gershkovich, arrested in Russia, officially designated as wrongfully detained.
The Journal's entire newsroom rallying behind him today.
Evan Gershkovich was in Russia reporting when agents arrested and charged him with espionage. Almost immediately, news of his arrest went viral. His relatives, along with the Journal, pushed for his release, and his colleagues, Joe and Drew, started investigating what was going on.
We knew that there was a chance Brittany Griner's arrest would incentivize more hostage takings, And what we soon learned was a game of prisoner trading that has been going on between the US and Russia.
But in this game, Putin held all the cards. Biden only had a couple Russian hackers in custody, not enough to free Evan.
Then what they need to do is make a policy. Nobody goes to Russia. Nobody goes to, and if you do, you're on your own. You're by yourself. It is what it is. Just make a policy and say that if you go, you sign a document. Every civilian that goes out, you sign a document. I am absolutely by myself, and I stand by my choices. Wait, do you want to plug on the phone? How many people do we have? Let's take a look. I'll make the group. Add friends to DM. I'll add stable Ronaldo. I'll add YRG. I'll add Sada. Maybe I don't think she said yes, did she? I don't even have her. Who else did I say? I don't have Jason the wheel. Have you trained?
Any chance you invite Greek to Gartic phone? Cinema.
Add some people, yeah. Add some people to this. We playing Gartic.
And he couldn't force Germany to trade the assassin either. Biden needed more cards to play. So he asked his allies to round up all the Russian spies they could.
It's 2022, 2023. The US is shouldering the burden in Ukraine. Europe hasn't quite gotten its act together in terms of equipping and funding the Ukrainian defense. And all these countries feel a little bit obligated to help America. We're helping you with your crisis in Ukraine. Help us with our crisis in Russia.
First, Norway arrested a researcher. Then Slovenia arrested a married couple. Then Poland arrested a journalist. On the surface, they were normal people. But in reality, they were all Russian spies.
Yeah, I'm about to say.
Journalist Pablo Gonzalez was caught passing information on the Russian opposition and Ukrainian military to Russian intelligence.
Yeah, but Chad, guys, I feel like these reports on this video are just kind of blurry. Like, based on who it is and what they're doing, it seems like a little bit like, oh, yeah, reports on his contact to Russia opposition. Yeah, but even if he was in contact with Russia opposition, though, does that make him a spy, though?
Passing information on the Russian
another
opposition
thing, I'm just trying to see, like, it seems biased.
Intelligence. Researcher Jose Giamaria was himself an intelligence officer embedded in Norway's Arctic region. And Anna and Artem Doltsev worked for decades as elite deep cover agents in Argentina and Slovenia. Joe and Drew write that Slovenian agents found Anna spying on an EU energy agency and hiding handwritten messages for her handlers. They were exactly the kind of people Putin valued most. And thanks to the US's allies, they were enough to get Putin to agree to a trade. At first, it was these Russians for these Americans, plus several others detained in Russia. Crucially, Germany agreed to trade the Russian assassin for Putin's arch-rival. Alexei Navalny spent years building a movement against Putin. He survived 2 assassination attempts before he was arrested and sent to a brutal prison camp.
In fact, Joe and Drew report that the idea to include Navalny actually came from a network of his family members and friends quietly pressuring the government.
Guys, as I've been on this go,
Navalny was the key to the most elaborate prisoner swap since the Cold War, when suddenly, in February 2024,
Alexei Navalny has died suddenly in prison.
Vladimir Putin's most energetic critic felt unwell after a walk on Friday and lost consciousness.
It was devastating for the Navalny people. His widow, Yulia, gave this impassioned speech with tears running down her cheeks.
Этот режим и Владимир Путин должны понести персональную ответственность за все те ужасные вещи, которые они делают.
We thought that's it. There's no hope for even a simple trade.
But over the next few months, the US, its allies, and Russia kept negotiating. And on the night of August 1st, 6 planes took off from 6 countries. On the first 5 were the Russian spies. And on the 6th were 16 people held by Russia. One by one, they arrived at an airport in Turkey and swapped sides. Putin welcomed his spies and assassins, while Biden and European leaders welcomed citizens, journalists, and dissidents. It marked the start of a new era where governments trading people is the norm. A few months later, Trump traded a Russian cybercriminal for an American, Mark Fogel. Now there are fewer American hostages in Russia, but Putin's incentive to take more is...
Chat, I think it's just gonna agree on something. You should agree. Journalist is one token, a spy is 10 tokens, and everybody has a certain value pre-agreed upon, and they trade tokens. It is what it is. I mean, okay, yeah, okay, you give me a spy, okay, now you have 10 tokens. Choose your 10, okay, I need three, whatever. Yeah, I mean, you have to, otherwise it becomes an unfair trade. It becomes dog shit.
Stronger than ever.
Because a WNBA player, that's what, 3 tokens against what, a fucking 300?
Because he's seen that it works, and he's not alone.
While Putin may be the world's...
You say Disney waiting. I made a Discord call. I'm the only person talking on Discord. I'm the only person on Discord.
Kidnapper in chief because he's so forensic and so calculating with his targets. The example that he set worldwide has been followed by many others.
According to the Foley Foundation, there are at least 39 Americans wrongfully detained today. They're mostly normal people, caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Some are in Russia, but dozens are being held in Cuba, Iran, China, and other countries. And these are just the American hostages. States are leveraging people for sanctions relief, diplomatic deals, and other prisoners. Hostage taking is one of the clear signs that our world is becoming more competitive and transactional.
We came into this story trying to cover what happened to our colleague and our friend, and what we actually ended up understanding.
I would have to look at the actual stuff. This seems like an interesting topic, but you have to very look into the cases themselves. Like, I feel like it's I'm being given a summary, and I have to accept the summary based on weak evidence, strong evidence, some evidence. I wouldn't be able to tell. You know what I mean? I don't want to make a call based on the video. I feel like guys, these videos are usually pretty one-sided, so it's difficult to really get a proper account of it. Usually videos when they're closer to like showing certain data, I'm more receptive, but a little bit less of this one.